Hello, my name is Jan Kattein. I'm founding director of Jan Kattein Architects. It's a real pleasure to be joining you in India this morning, and thank you ever so much to Placemaking India and in particular to Vanita for inviting us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chrysanthe Staikopoulou. I'm director at Jan Kattein Architects. When Jan set up the practice, he set out not to only achieve design and special objectives with our projects, but also to achieve social, economic, and educational ones. Jan, would you like to speak a little bit about some of the projects we have realized in the last few years?
I'm going to talk initially about high streets. High streets, that we have 600 high streets in London, and every Londoner lives just 5 minutes walk in average from a high street. So they're really important civic centres for neighbourhoods. Here we're travelling to the northeast of London to High Road Leighton in Waltham Forest. This is how High Road Leighton looked in 2008 after the financial crash, before we started with our work. And this is how High Road Leighton looked after we completed our programme of works. What you don't see is all the negotiation that happens behind the scenes. So here is a picture of the terrace across. And here are some of our clients. There were 46 of them. They're all incredibly skilled at what they do, have a real commitment and dedication to their work. And part of our role as architects was to bring them all on board to buy into the big vision of reinvigorating High Road Leighton. The project became a massive success. It appeared in the national press and was branded the Notting Hill of the East. It appeared all over the world on television, standing in for London preparing for the Olympics. We've done a lot of other high street projects since. Here we're travelling to Morden in South London. The problems there are very different, although there are also similarities. You can see the top image is the terrace as it was before we started work. It had fallen into disparate ownership. And at the bottom, you can see the result of us getting everybody together to see how we can regenerate this really important heritage building. That is the eastern end of that terrace at night. And this is the western end of that terrace at night. What's special about these projects, and specific, I suppose, is that they're projects that are really enabling and empowering people off the grassroots, existing residents, existing shop owners, existing businesses, to thrive, rather than, as sometimes can happen in regeneration, where people are pushed out and gentrification takes place. Just across from the Modern Court Parade was an empty bank chambers. We became aware when we did the project that really we needed to diversify the high street audience, and in particular attract younger people into Morden. So Crown House Creative was created with a very low budget. We set up a place for culture, for exhibitions and for events and for music. And that contributed to diversifying the high street audience. There are a lot more high street projects that we've done since. They all have a different context to them, and the strategies that we developed were all different to pick up that context and respond appropriately. Often, part of our job is looking at vacant spaces and seeing how they can be brought back to life. Obviously, as is the case all over the world, a lot of retail trade has now moved online, so the demand for retail spaces on the high street is less than it used to be. This is an empty shop in Peckham in South London, which we were asked to reinvigorate. And this is Nunhead Corner a few months later, where we worked very closely with the municipality to put together a programme of rolling tenancies of pop-up shops that would move into this refurbished shop that we created. We had somebody who sold vinyl, we had an artist collective, we had somebody who restored furniture, we had a flower shop, and we had a yoga studio, all on the high street, reinvigorating this important corner. This is the interior where the artist collective was selling things that they'd made. And ultimately, we found a permanent tenant for the shop, a deli selling wine and grocery, and that permanently reversed the decline at that end of the high street. This is a common problem. We're now travelling north across the river to Ilford at the northeastern edge of London, where a Dorothy Perkins department store had to close down, and the building was then taken over by the municipality, who asked us to ensure that it could continue to contribute to the liveliness of the high street. We came up with a strategy that would introduce flexible furniture elements to allow different uses to happen, and for each tenant to rearrange the space to their needs. And that's it, the Ilford Spark Lab, with its doors wide open, contributing to high street life again in Ilford. We had 8 different tenancies. Here's the Rabbit Road Press, which is a printing studio that's arranged open access workshops to the community and sold all sorts of printed goods on the high street. One of the other tenancies was the Art and Nature Space, where an artist rolled out an amazing program of workshops for families to engage with nature and discuss the problematics of climate change. And here is the Made in London shop, a pop-up shop selling everything made in London.
Thanks, Jan. It's quite obvious from what you were talking about is that there has been a shift in trends in the high street. We see, especially in London, a lot of the shops being vacant. But there is a challenge. Like, how do you sustain a town centre as a social space, as an employment space, and as a cultural space?
This is an interesting question. A lot of what you see on the high street actually happens behind the high street. The social life, the economic life happens behind those colourful facades that we've put forward. So increasingly, the emphasis that our projects have is to look at alternative uses that complement the high street. I'm going to show you another set of projects that respond specifically to that demand. So here we're in North London, Drummond Street, a street that is famous for some of London's first Indian restaurants. At the end of the high street, outside of the high street, is one of the biggest construction sites that we have in the country, which is the new station for the high-speed rail link to the north of the country, HS2. As a result, the road is closed and factors outside the high street are really compromising the success of the businesses on that street. So what we did is we worked with shop owners and we came up with a solution that would make Drummond Street stand out as a really unique place to come and visit. So we designed and made London's first modular streetery that could be set up on the street, to give a really wonderful summertime dining experience out in the public realm. And here it is, coming on a lorry made in East London and being installed on the street subsequently. And here it is on the street, and you can see the between the barriers, the seating behind, and the restaurants serving customers out in the street. This is a car park just off the high street in Wood Green in Haringey in North London. And the building beyond the yellow brick building is empty. And here the municipality came to us with the challenge of providing for its mini and micro businesses that we know are in abundant presence in Haringey, but really struggling with rising rents. So we came up with this proposal here, which shows the yellow brick building re-inhabited, refurbished for small businesses, and then business units erected around Central Square on the car park. The first thing we did was we painted the yellow building blue, because we wanted to really point people's nose at our project and make sure that we get noticed straight away. And we did. People did notice. The next step along the way was to get volunteers together and start to build out the little business units at the rear of the blue building on the car park site. Now, we could have just hired a contractor to do the work, but we were really aware that there's a real skills shortage also amongst people in the construction trade, and we wanted as soon as possible to deliver social value. So we set up our own construction company, employed apprentices and volunteers so that learning could come out of the project as well as construction. And the deal was, you come work with us for a day, you meet some cool people, you learn some skills, and we'll get you lunch. And lots of people came. And that's Blue House Yard once it was completed, with these little retail units surrounding a civic square that's got markets and events on it, and people from all walks of life having found a place to congregate. This is a picture inside the bus. On one end of that civic square, we parked a disused double-decker bus and turned it into a cafe. And this is one of the tenants who ended up moving into the Blue House. He makes bags out of reclaimed materials. And this is one of the tenants who moved into one of the work sheds surrounding the courtyard. He set up an art gallery there. Now we're going a little bit further east, and this is 4th Street in Edmonton, which is an area that's subject to significant deprivation, with really high levels of crime, high levels of unemployment, and environmental challenges associated with air pollution. And here you can see on this picture is one of the main sites that local people pointed out to us as a real important place to transform, because it's the hotspot of criminal activity locally. So we came up with a strategy, and that strategy wasn't just about that site, and it wasn't just about one problem. It was very clear that we would need to address the challenges in a multilateral way, that we would need to provide employment opportunities, learning opportunities, opportunities for the community to come together, to create spaces for culture, and also address the environmental challenges too. So this strategy was put forward for funding and was supported by the Mayor of London for implementation subsequently. This is one of the proposals we put forward, which was to turn the garage yards that you've seen on the first picture into workspace streets with workspaces for young entrepreneurs under 30. These are drawings of the library, which is on the high street, has a shopfront on the high street. It always used to work very well as a library, but there was also need to provide space for community meetings and for cultural space too. So we looked at the library and thought that building can work a lot harder than it does at the moment, and made changes to introduce all of these other functions too. And that's the library completed on site with an event running at the moment into the evening. Normally, the library would have closed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but it now has a cultural programme which is free and open to everybody on 4th Street. One of the things that happens in there is that bands play gigs. We put a stage in and stage lighting, but there's also a children's library too. We kept all the books only they're on shelves that can be pivoted out of the way to make space for dance performances, for yoga, for training sessions, for screening, and for music, and even for indoor markets. This is a picture of Grove Street, which is the street outside the local primary school. And in order to get the cars off that street and protect the children from air pollution, at least in front of the school gates, we ran a massive party. And we repurposed the street initially just for a day, so people would learn to understand what the potential and opportunity is if we close that street down. And here is the street after we completed a package of works and closed it permanently. And you can see the footsteps, the footprints that are on the street, which are of imaginary creatures that children thought might inhabit the rewilded urban environment. And here is an aerial photograph of the workspace that you've seen the drawing of earlier, the garage workspace with the 2 streets and garages converted into workspaces on either side. Here's one of the garage workspaces where we've put this barrel vaulted roof over, and the roofed street is there to encourage social interaction between different businesses, but also between businesses and the public too. The front of the project has a community space which is open to everybody to run functions, to take part in workshops and seminars, and also to engage with the businesses that are now resident at Angel Yard.
Jan, you mentioned the financial crisis, then there's COVID, then COVID brought a whole new consciousness about environmental issues to people, about air pollution, about well-being. How can placemaking projects promote these concerns that people have about their environment?
I'm going to talk to you about another few projects to illustrate how we're addressing this increasing urgency felt amongst communities. So we're travelling for a minute back to northeast London to Ilford, where the Spark Lab is located. Just around the corner from there is Oakfield Road, which is this road here you can see in the picture. It's a very important road because it connects lots of cultural institutions, yet it's a road with massive problems, as you can see in the photograph. So we came up with a strategy of bringing a landscape into that street, a landscape that's based on the ancient landscape that used to cover all of Ilford 150 years ago. And in the middle is ancient woodland, and then we've got asset grassland and heathland being all part of this landscape. So here you can see those landscapes reintroduced right into the town centre, becoming a sort of green lung and a place for immersive recreation in a very, very busy small town centre. This is the experience looking in from the high street end of Oakfield Road. There are places to sit. We ran a series of workshops around planting and rewilding urban spaces, and people could rest, people could walk past. Ultimately, this was a temporary project, and the trees got planted into local parks. And to make sure that on a temporary project, we're really careful with the amount of resources that we use. All the pallets that form this project were reclaimed from used stock. Now we're going quite a bit further south, crossing the River Thames again, to an area of London called Thamesmead, really at the southeastern fringes of the capital. An area which was developed from the 50s onwards. It used to be marshland. And here in the picture, you can see Claridge Way, which is one of the most important connecting routes to schools, to bus stops, and to the local shops. And clearly, it's not really a route that supports social or cultural activity at the moment. So the client came up with quite an informed brief in that they said, you can do whatever you want with that road, with Claridge Way, as long as you do it together with the community. The first thing we did was to run a big tea party right when school was out in the afternoon. We put a big table up and we printed a tablecloth which had a map of Claridge Way on it, and it gave people the opportunity to tell us about their personal experiences and hopes for Claridge Way. We also worked with VR. It was a really good tool to engage not only young people, but also elderly people and bring those communities together to talk to each other about Claridge Way. And ultimately, after about a year of working with local people, we drew up the Claridge Way Common Plan. A common plan, as opposed to a master plan, is a plan really that picks up initiatives and ideas from the community and puts them in a certain order so they can be implemented. And then we started delivering the various components shown in the common plan. Here you can see one of 6 creative exercise benches that we designed and delivered with girls from the local youth club who wanted to have a safe space to exercise. This part of the project was about opening up the edges of Claridge Way to play, nature play, so that on the way to school, you'd have the opportunity to take a little detour and immerse yourself in the woodland. And then we worked with one of the schools who agreed to run part of their science and food lessons out in the open. And we developed the design with them for a school garden, which the children in this picture here helped to plant us up. Then we were speaking to people who lived in properties adjacent to Claridge Way, and we asked them whether they knew their neighbours, and lots of people said no. And we said, well, would you like to? And lots of people were very enthusiastic about this idea. So whoever volunteered was given a gate to be inserted into their garden fence, and every 2 neighbours were given a planter in the public realm that they could tend together. Now we're travelling a bit further west to Canada Water, which is a big regeneration area in South London. And you can see just at the bottom right-hand corner of the page, there's a big metal shed on the site that we were given. On this project, we were working together with a charity called Global Generation, whose remit it is to teach young people and families and young adults about environmental leadership. So you can imagine that shed that we had to begin with wasn't really all that useful. It didn't have windows, it was cold in the winter, and since we needed to build a garden, it didn't have any daylight. We had to remove the metal cladding from it, and you can see we kept just a little bit of it here at the southern end of the shed. Then we started to think about because they needed an educational building, how we would build that building and what the parameters would be. It was very clear from the beginning that a lot of this would have to be built by volunteers. It was also very clear to the charity that it would have to be a super sustainable building, seeing that the very thing they're trying to promote is ecology and environmental awareness. So here there's some volunteers preparing wood logs that were delivered to us from the forestry team in the Epping Forest, and these were thinnings and cuttings. And here you can see how volunteers are starting to build walls with wood logs and lime mortar. This is an ancient North American construction technique called cordwood. And it's a very accessible way of building, which even lay people can acquire really quite easily. It's also very sustainable because it locks all the carbon away in a wall. And here is the north elevation of the completed building. All the windows were given to us by a window manufacturer. They were all surplus stock that was going to go into landfill. And you can see here the staircase is a construction site staircase that we were given by a construction company. And the corner coins here are all made at the end on the left and the right of the picture, all made from railway sleepers. And here's the interior. You can see the cordwood in the back that the people in the previous image were building. All the white walls are made from plywood that we reclaimed from construction hoarding. The floor is made from doors that come from a building in the city that was being demolished. And the kitchen also came from that same building. And here you can look the other way, looking south with the sun streaming in through all the reclaimed windows. Now, we didn't manage to reuse everything, but we managed to reuse 60% of materials for the building, which is vastly more than has ever been realized in London before. And what's amazing is we had 3,000 volunteers who helped build this building, each of them going home having contributed to an incredibly sustainable building, but also with the message that really it can be done, that we can build with reclaimed and found materials.
You talk about education, Jan, and you talk about how important it is, dissemination of information, how important it is to spread the message that placemaking is a really vital part of our city planning, of of our communities. I mean, it's incredibly hard to pull this project together and to realize them. And we have a very dedicated team, and it's very encouraging for us when we win awards for our work. And we recently, as you know, we won the Social Value Architect of the Year award, and we have also won the Architecture for the Common Good Lifetime Award in the McEwan Awards. So I would like to ask, what is next? What is next for the placemaking community in London?
I think we're actually way ahead in London. The way that different parts of the city work together, how communities, the municipality, individuals, schools, and the private sector collaborate and cooperate in order to do more and to do better for communities is incredible and unprecedented. I think what we need to do is we need to start sharing the lessons that we've learned in London, and this is very much the mission that I, as a personally, and that we as a practice are embarking on. We've recently started to work much more outside of London, and we're realizing what a massive impact our approach can have on communities some of who haven't seen any regeneration work in the last 30 years. So I'm very proud that although we are developing a bespoke approach wherever we go, that we've learned a methodology that really is applicable far and wide, and ultimately can mitigate some of the sort of deficiencies that communities are experiencing. So the next step for me is to share that experience even wider. We are starting to work in Europe, and also I've just completed a book called Londoners Making London, which is shortly to be published and on the bookshelves in April. And this book tells 9 stories of projects where communities have made an incredible difference to their peers and their neighbourhoods by being incredibly sort of dedicated and focused in bringing forward positive change.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you everyone in Placemaking India. See you soon.
Bye bye.